Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we will be discussing sprint planning and daily scrum. Let's meet as a team. Sprint planning is an exercise which the whole team will engage in. Previously we have discussed a poker session where we reviewed the backlog and did grooming exercise. Today we will do the sprint planning exercise. It is a meeting of all the stakeholders to agree on the contents and deliverables by an agile team as part of the sprint scheduled to start on the sprint planning day. I have an example sprint board out here on the right side. It's basically, showing out like the backlog, something that we went over in detail in the poker session. I'm not going to go over that again today, but it's more as a reference. So the key things is what are the contents of a sprint, and those would be something we need to consider today as we meet as part of sprint planning day. Sprint planning includes, most importantly, the user stories. Again, I have a previous video where we have gone in detail on user stories and also how do we give priority to them, how do we give weightage to them in terms of points. All of those things I've previously discussed in my video on the poker session, as well as more details on the video on the user stories. So, but again, the key thing in sprint planning is the user story. Now, a user story will also have a, a lot of subtasks. Usually, a team may have a template. Now, the template would comprise, a few standard things like there could be a requirements document, there could be a development task, there could be a peer testing task, there could be a QA task, there could be some other task as well, right? Some documentation task. Potentially, you might have a performance testing, integration testing task. So a bunch of subtasks could be there for user stories. And like I mentioned, typically it is part of a template that could be, used to generate subtasks for user stories. Now, we have to keep in mind that not all user stories are the same. There could be some subtasks that could be unique to them. So we need to add those in as a Scrum Master when you're going through sprint planning. And there could be some tasks that are not needed. So potentially you could cancel them or, maybe not use the generic template to create all of those subtasks. But again, it's very important to understand that the subtask will be something that drives a story to its done state. So having the right set of subtasks will ensure a couple of things. One, that we actually deliver in the user story what we have, started out to deliver. And secondly, it is actually being delivered, in a quality fashion in terms of all the right steps that needed to be completed, all the right testing that needed to be completed, and any other dependencies that might be needed to ensure that the user story is actually done in an acceptable state. Okay. And lastly, we must always remember that a sprint planning session is never complete without having a target velocity, right? So that planned velocity, we have again discussed that in our previous sessions on how to accomplish what our target velocity is. And the poker session also talks a lot about that in detail. But today on sprint planning day, you actually want to plan out stories that equal to your target or planned velocity. So sprint planning is the start of your sprint where you have a target or a planned velocity, And the achievement of that is the target of sprint planning. Okay, let's look at the next thing I want to talk about today is the daily scrum. So what is the daily scrum? So on a very high level, it is an activity that's run by the scrum master. Usually it has a fixed time of the day. It could be in the morning, it could be end of the day, it could be afternoon. Sometimes teams are in different geographical time zones, so pick a time zone that works for everyone. Say you have people on the East Coast, West Coast, maybe pick a time zone that slot that works for everyone. So maybe like at say 11 a.m. Eastern would be 8 a.m. Pacific, so that's fair to everyone. Usually, again, like I said, it's at a fixed time of the day, so you don't want to have it one day at 10 in the morning, one day at 11 in the morning. The goal is to make this a habit, and people should just know that there's going to be a call at that time of the day. They shouldn't have to look at their calendar and have to guess. Usually, it is for a fixed duration. Some teams have it longer, some people have it shorter. My recommendation is always to keep it as short as possible. 15 minutes is going to be the target. If you have sessions that are going longer, my guess is that you're probably engaging in other activities that should not be part of your daily scrum. And most importantly, whom should this be attended by? Developers, QA staff, the product owners, the scrum master. These are the key people who should be on this call every day. And what are we trying to review over here? Basically, everything that was accomplished yesterday needs to be discussed. Everything that will be planned and be targeted for being achieved today, that needs to be discussed. And in my opinion, the highlight of the Scrum call is always what are the impediments, what are the roadblocks, right? Those need to be mentioned, highlighted, and what's the plan of action to address those? Frequently, the developers, the QA, they themselves have a plan. As long as they state it, that's fine. Sometimes people are stuck and they need help and guidance. I think that's where the Scrum Master shows up and says, okay, I will step in and help get you the resources, get you the different tasks that might be helpful to resolve these impediments. So I think that's the key part of a daily Scrum call. Most importantly, this is not a one-person show. The sprint planning as well as the daily Scrum. If you have only the Scrum Master talking away and the rest of the stakeholders not engaged, you are doing something clearly wrong. And at that point, you might as well not have a sprint planning. You might as well not have a daily Scrum. So again, remember to keep the team engaged. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for joining our channel today. And I will kind of be talking about handling hot fixes in the next Scrum call. With that, I would like to thank everyone again and say goodbye for now. Thank you.